You're live. Excellent. Well, let me turn this around so it's not as close up. Have me rotate the image just like that. There we are. I'm not sure if anyone can give us an indication that they can actually hear us, but we're just going to go for broke here, right?
Is Ava Chamberlain in the building? Come to the office, please.
I'll tell you, all of this excitement back to school, I forgot to stock my locker.
I know, me too. I got all kinds of stuff here.
Which one is yours? Well, I have all of our daily supplies. We've got aluminum foil here. I'm looking at it. I can't even read the name. Aluminum foil. We have some LEDs. We've got a great source on LEDs, by the way.
Have a Makey too.
I can't believe we have the same school supply.
This really cool print.
Wow. All right.
So, did you have a good summer?
I tell you, it was a busy summer. And if I would have more time, I'd play the slideshow that we have prepared for you, but I guess it's a good thing we don't run a technology organization, huh?
Right. It was super busy though, wasn't it? We had lots of stuff going on for programs, huge summer for summer camps.
It was incredible. It was the first time that we've really looked into expanding the summer camp program across Brilliant Labs Atlantic. And we had summer camps in Newfoundland, in Labrador, and PEI, Nova Scotia. It's amazing. And the Brilliant Labs employee list for summer was approaching 100. I think 4 years ago, it was one person.
That's right.
So it's been an amazing journey, and thank you to the 4 of you, maybe there's more watching live, that have joined us so that we can bring you up to speed and tell you a few things that are happening that we're excited about, and we're going to build what? Oh, right, I'm sorry, I'm on script already.
You are. Well, I think, why don't we just kind of then we can actually, I gotta give you a class.
Yes, you do. That's right.
Why don't I'm gonna let you go first because you got a longer block to take for your class. I know, it's this year, right? You switched to the longer.
Alright, well, just need to take, what do I need? Plus, I guess I have everything.
Yeah, you got everything.
I actually don't have any.
I'll let you go through the things. I think what is there. Very nice. Check this out. These are really fun. I got all these really cool things that I want to save. So what I did before school day started is I actually put myself in a locker bar. Microbit and Ableton. I'm going to set it now. That way, I can keep this listen. We'll see you guys later. Get out of there.
Hey, what's going on?
It works. Did you see that, Jake?
No, I didn't see it. I was busy in an anatomy lesson. Sorry, Scotty. We're
It's
gonna put you
Scotty.
under the table here for a moment.
It came so fast. Did you hear that?
I heard it.
I guess someone was trying to break into my locker because they saw that I got the new Perplexus this year.
Well, or they saw that there are no locks on any of these lockers.
That's true. I guess we have to take care of that too, don't we? But did you see what I
I heard it and I saw it. So it looks like you have some NeoPixel strips there, or microbits. What's going on?
Well,
I don't know anyone that's in my before. That's right. I don't have 35 volts. I don't have 35 volts. What I love is because I would assume that it's all systems there, and we could use the block-based buildings. So that's
I would have. So
take it one step further. What I like about this is there's no computer attached to it. The microbit has a really small footprint, and you can hide it away inconspicuously. So nefarious villains like our program coordinator Kendra can't get into your locker and steal your things.
That's right.
Even though mine are completely safe anyway.
Yeah, and the best part about this too, yeah, no one came in there. The best part about this too is that a lot of people in Atlantic Canada have microbits in their classroom. They've been looking at different ways that they can use the microbit for different projects and things like that. And here's a really cool challenge that can apply to a lot of people, because I used it for a locker alarm,
Yeah.
but it can be any type of alarm, right?
Yeah.
Say you have special things in your drawer, in your desk,
Yeah.
or if you want to keep a pesky brother or sister out of your room, you set an alarm up for your doorway. Lots of different applications to this kind of project.
And we talk a lot about physical computing and how students are exposed to a lot of coding within their classroom, going home and especially doing the hour of code challenges. But there's not always an opportunity to use that code to become the back end of a physical solution to a problem that you may have.
That's right.
Like people stealing stuff out of your locker.
Yeah.
All right. So how did you make it?
Okay, so we've set up our little building station here. First thing, of course, we have is our microbit. Along with the microbit is a battery pack. And then we have all of our sort of peripherals for the build itself. Of course, we have a pile of alligator clips, which we can use to clip onto the microbit, and then put the peripherals to the microbit with. We also have a buzzer. This is our speaker that we use in order to play the song with the sounds.
See, instead of just sitting in the microbit, maybe I'll bring up the code for you.
Why don't we do that?
What?
I don't trust you.
Tight quarters. How's the audio? Oh, okay. Oh, no, well, we gotta do this in We're gonna try it. What could go wrong? All right, so we'll try it this way and see what happens. I'll bring up the code for you.
Okay. So just like any project here, we have two pieces to this. Of course, we build a device, but equally as important, we have to tell the device what to do, right? And so that's where the code comes into play. For any of us who are familiar with microbits, we are dealing with MakeCode, which is block-based coding, similar to Scratch and things like that. So very easy to sort of pick up on how it works and things like that. And it's just snapping blocks together like puzzle pieces. And so basically what we have here is, I can open up my locker and demonstrate this. Our alligator clips here are connected to one of the pins on the microbit. And so what I've said in my code is that when this pin is released, we want to run a sequence of code. So that on pin 0, or sorry, I think it's pin 1, on pin 1 released, we want a sequence of code to start running running its course. So on pin 0, on pin 1 released, we have, and I've tucked it in here so that our burglar didn't see the wires and things like that, but we have our buzzer hidden down the side of our, and there it went. We have our buzzer hooked onto these alligator clips. And these are connected to pin 0. Whenever we're running a sequence of audio or sounds through through MakeCode, it goes through pin 0, right? So this is hooked up to pin 0 as well as the ground.
What pin is it hooked up to?
Pin 0. So if you're looking at our microbit here, P0 is here, and our ground is here. And so again, it's just like simple circuits where you're completing a circuit with our alligator clips in order to send a signal to that buzzer. So P0 is our positive end of that circuit, and the ground is our negative end. And those go together to attach to the buzzer and play our sound. And so the same thing is happening with the door of the locker, where the positive end of that circuit is connected to P1, and then the negative onto the ground. And so when that circuit is open, meaning that the door is open, we want to play the sounds out of pin 0.
Nice.
Now, pin 2 here, which is our third pin in this array of connection points here, is where we actually hook our NeoPixels up. The NeoPixels don't just have 2 connections, as we can see here, and we'll get into the build and show you guys how that goes together. The connections here, there's the ground, which is always our black. The power, because the NeoPixel strip needs power, is the red, and then our signal, which goes to the P2, the pin 2, is going through the white. Okay, so these guys get 3 connections instead of just the 1, because these guys need a little extra boost of power. Okay, so that's our general setup, and the code is quite simple. With MakeCode, you can actually assign different sounds, and it's quite easy to do so. You actually have, when you bring up the sounds, you have a piano that can play all of the sounds and things like that, and you can choose sounds that might be appropriate. And all I did is really just play 2 sounds. You heard it go, we can even run this code again.
Reminded me of London ambulance.
Yeah, it's kind of like an
right?
alarm sound, right? Yeah.
So did you use one of the
I did, yeah.
the pre-coded sounds?
Yeah, so we can hear those 2 sounds just looping over again, because what I've said is, while this is happening, we want to play those 2 sounds. And if it keeps checking, saying, yeah, that's still happening, it's going to keep playing the sounds.
I love how bright the NeoPixels are in there.
Yeah,
I don't know
it makes
if,
it really cool.
Kendra, would you mind shutting the lights off at the end of the hallway so that we can see, you know, the and what a color that you used there.
I used purple.
You
That's
used
right.
purple.
Yeah.
Nice.
So basically, and then on top of that, the NeoPixel light is being flashed in sequence with those sounds too, so it kind of looks like a siren.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, truth be told, there are more powerful speakers that you could use you don't have to just rely on the piano buzzer. Oh, right, that only turns off half of the lights.
Yeah.
We're learning here. But you could even use one of those battery-operated Bluetooth speakers that you can find at the dollar store
That's right.
or at Princess Auto and things like that, and that would really up the volume.
Yeah, so that in case you're not around, you can actually hear it down the hallway.
Yeah.
One of the really cool things about the microbits that we didn't actually get around to doing either is that if you get more advanced with the code and understanding how the microbits work, is you can actually pair 2 microbits up using the wireless communication, right? The radio function. And then the really cool thing that you can do is move from something that's playing a sound in your locker to this device sending a signal to a microbit that you might actually have tucked in your pocket
Nice.
with a speaker and things like that, playing a sound to you to notify you, even though you're in another room, that someone's getting into your stuff.
I
right?
love it.
So that's super cool too, right? So there's a whole bunch of different extra pieces that you can add to the.
Imagine if we had 10 microbits, a microbit on everything in our locker, and another receiving microbit, and if those 10 items got further and further away, then it would trigger the alarm.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be something. Okay, let's get into the code.
Yeah. Okay. So we should we maybe bring this over?
Yeah, I guess we can unhook everything since
Yeah.
we're not streaming from that device.
Let's bring this over as long as we've got enough juice here. And we can look at this closely. So the really cool thing, the bulk of our code is right here. So you can see at the start, we've used an on pin 1 release. If we go up into our input section here, And you see it's not here. If we click on more, we can discover we've got an on pin whatever released. And so that's where we found that piece of our code. And then, so what we want to do inside of this sort of block here is run a sequence or set up a sequence that we want to run when that door is open. So P1 released means the door is open, right? And so what we want to do is basically say, play this sound, middle C I chose, for 1 beat, and then we want to show our colors. And so with the NeoPixels, we're going to turn the purple color light on and show it. Then I have it waiting for 100 milliseconds, so not a lot of time, and then playing a lower note, the low C, and then turning those lights off. And that's all that is.
Okay, so you didn't actually use a pre-recorded sound. You chose your notes on a piano that showed up.
Yeah, so if we go here, the really cool thing about this is we can run through, and I actually used this a number of times. I changed my sounds a few times. So there's my middle C right there. If I wanted to change the note, I can just play this, and you can even test the different ones and find the best one for what you want to do in your code.
Wow. And it automatically updates the microbit simulation, so if you
Yeah.
wanted to test it out.
That's right. So
neat.
over here in our simulation, it automatically changes that. Now, what we notice here is a lot of different things here where we've got a few variables created. This alarm set variable, if we scroll up here, I have added something in the on start. So this on start means that when the microbit is turned on, something automatically happens, right? So in my on start, what I've done is I've created a variable that we call alarm set. And all that is what I wanted to do was add something where I could turn the alarm on, just like how in a car alarm, you press the button and it goes beep, beep, it activates it. It's kind of the same idea that I wanted to do here. So I created a variable called alarm set, and I've set that at the very start to be true, which means that whenever the microbit is reset, automatically the alarm has been set as well. Now the other thing here, whenever we're playing around with NeoPixels, what we first have to do is define those NeoPixels. And so we use another variable there, and I just called this variable lights. Now the easy thing you can do if you don't want to call it lights, you can actually rename the variable as well as something that makes more sense to what you're doing. But here we've defined the variable we call lights as a NeoPixel strip set up or plugged into pin 2. It has 30 NeoPixels, and this is the kind of NeoPixel that it is. It's an RGB, which stands for red, green, and blue, right? There's also red, green, blue, W, but that's not the type of strip that we have here, okay? So that's our strip. Then down here, when we're trying to show our lights, we're going to call that variable, which we've called lights, and say which color we want to show. But the interesting thing, the different thing about NeoPixels is we also always have to add this show afterwards in order to show what we want the NeoPixels to do.
Every time you make a change to the strip, you have to update it by sending a show command.
That's right, yeah. And then so what I've done is I've had the purple light come on, and then I wanted them just to turn off. And so what's interesting about this, to turn off the NeoPixels, you have to clear them at first and then show that clear. And so we can kind of ignore this where we've defined the color as white, because this color can be pretty much anything. I could have said purple in this case too, and because we have these, it still is clearing them or turning the lights off, right?
Nice.
And then part of our turning the alarm on and off, or setting our alarm, is our A/B buttons. So what I wanted to do is when I come back to my locker and deactivate the alarm, I want to press my A and B buttons at the same time. And so that's what this sequence of code is here. So this event here, where the two A and B buttons are pressed, what I want to do is either turn the alarm off if it's on, or turn it on if it's off, right?
Victoria Hotline setting to the office, please.
So what we've done here is when I press A and B, it's going to check and say, okay, is the alarm set variable set to true like we have at the start? If it is, I want to turn it to false. But if it's not set to true, meaning it's set to false, what I want to do is wait for a few seconds so that I can close the door and the alarm doesn't go off on me, and then set that alarm set variable to true. right? And that's it. So there's a few sequences there. And the interesting thing is that this is probably there's a bit more to this code for this alarm because of the added step of us having lights
Yeah.
and maybe the
arming and the
arming
disarming,
and
right?
things. But very simply, you could just have, if you just have supplies like microbits, battery packs, batteries, and a buzzer, and alligator
Yeah.
clips, that's an alarm there. And all that is when P0 is released, play sound, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so quite simply, there's different versions of this
Yeah.
this alarm that you can make depending on your skill level and also the supplies you have.
The supplies that you have, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And we're going to be using another microcontroller quite a bit in the builds that we do this year called the Adafruit Circuit Playground Express. It's been known for quite some time, and what's interesting about that one is it also uses make block code to be programmed, but it has an internal buzzer, it has NeoPixels, and so then the footprint of that alarm could be quite a bit smaller.
Right, you don't have to worry about so many alligator clips and so many peripherals like the buzzer itself. The interesting thing that we were thinking about too is that the Circuit Playground Express also has things like the light, the ambient light detector and things like that. So you could actually say when it sees light, in other words, when the door is opened, play the sound and things like that too.
Yeah.
Right? So kind of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen. That was very comprehensive. I was about to thank you, but thank you. That was a great comprehensive
No problem,
walk through
buddy.
the code. We only have a few minutes left. We're going to give us a couple of weeks, and we're going to upload the code as well as the full build instruction for the locker alarm. And
I think that's a great idea.
yeah, there we are. So rather than going through the physical side of it, why don't we get the Halloween stuff? So there are a couple of things coming up at Brilliant Labs, across Brilliant Labs Atlantic, that you can be involved with. And that's where our good friend,
Scotty.
Scotty, Scotty, oh, I'm sorry, I'm grabbing you by the neck.
Here, I'll grab
That's
him
terrible,
this
by the
way.
backbone. There we are. So the first innovation challenge that we have coming up is the Halloween Hacking and Animatronics Challenge. Essentially, many of us have a Halloween prop lying around our house. We're lucky enough to have Scotty here. And how can we change this? How can we animate it? How can we hack it to do something else? Many of these decorations that you even find in the dollar store have some electronic component or some switch. And
right.
so this guy, in addition to his stature and to his
suit jacket.
right, great suits, you can turn on his LEDs, on and off. What you're doing here isn't dissimilar from what you have in that locker.
That's right. This is a switch that you're turning the light on and
Yeah.
off with, right?
There's no microcontroller here, but it's just simple circuits turning on and turning off.
Mhm.
And so if we can use a tactile push button like this with Scotty, I wonder if we could hook up with microbits and then a pressure pads. And so if you're walking down a hall and you push your foot onto a pressure pad,
Yeah.
then Scotty can light up his eyes from 30 meters away or something
That's right.
like that.
Or if I'm hiding behind a corner
Nice.
waiting till you walk by, I can
Yeah.
press my button.
Scotty's been hanging out around BLHQ, and he's caught all of us a number of times and given us a fright. We saw a lot of great projects come in for this challenge last year.
We did,
Shout
yeah.
out to Miramichi Valley High School. They did a great project where it was a candy bowl, and when you put your hand in, the top closed.
That's right.
Here from there was some creepy ones, that really had a horrifying aesthetic to them. Bliskar Middle School really played off the It movie that came out.
one I think was horrifying in
It
itself.
was.
That clown that was just
Yeah.
And the really cool thing is that with this challenge, there's lots of there's a huge range in that challenge for the actual making, right? If you are familiar with microbits, you can hack a prop like this with a microbit. If you're not and maybe leaning more towards making Mickeys or even just creating something and something spooky and things like that with some recyclables and things like
That's
that.
right.
It all just sort of
Cardboard
fits into that.
string,
Yeah.
pulleys, elastic bands, all of that can be incorporated in. And it's a great opportunity for you to collaborate with someone, in your class that you haven't worked with before. And it's a Halloween prop, and everyone has an idea of what they would like to make for Halloween.
That's right.
How's your time going there, Mr. Keys?
We're 25 minutes.
25
Look
minutes.
at
What else
that.
do we have coming up?
We've got that. Plus, we actually we'll have Maker Faire coming up.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm very excited about that. There's lots of things that we're hopefully going to be pumping out from that experience and sharing with the rest of Atlantic Canada for sure.
That's right. So if you haven't, here comes the shameless plugging. If you haven't already followed at @brilliant_labs on Twitter, that's the our Twitter handle, and we're going to be sending out all kinds of tweets live from Maker Faire. We have most of the Brilliant Labs Atlantic team going, and a few teachers from across Atlantic Canada going down to experience not only the 2 days of Maker Faire, which is branded quite literally the greatest show and tell on earth,
That's right.
but also Friday is a day-long
Think he's good
educator.
there?
I think he's good. Educators forum. So there's going to be a lot of content coming your way, and we'd be pleased to touch base to tell the whole story when we get back. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
There we are. It's our goal to keep these YouTube lives short this year. Thank you very much for those of you who joined us, and we'll be seeing you again shortly. What should they do?
They should stay brilliant.
Always stay
Yeah.
brilliant. Thanks, folks.
Thanks,
Happy
guys.
Friday.